Hi, I'm Scott. I'm a Quiet Place fan.
Hi, I'm Senthil, and I'm a Bird Box fan.
So the two of us have decided, since we disagree, we're going to start watching as many horror movies as we can and come up with a new way of rate them. Come join us. All right. Hey, good afternoon, Senthil. How you doing?
Good afternoon, Scott. Doing fantastic. So, what movie are we going to talk about today?
Well, Senthil, this is a pick that you sent to me. It is called I Am Lisa, and it was released in 2020. The director is Patrick Rea, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, REA. We tried to find the budget for this. It's considered a micro budget film in all the articles. We were unable to locate an actual cost for this movie. So we're just going to make the assumption that it's under $1 million, which is what we review on here. We try to keep films under $1 million. Occasionally we'll go a little bit over. So your first thoughts on I Am Lisa?
Uh, there were a couple of things that stood out to me about this. One was, not surprisingly, because it was stated to be a micro budget, there were not a lot of effects. It's clearly a monster species movie, and the effects were very minimal. I don't know that necessarily detracted from the movie itself. But elements that didn't work for me a whole lot is the brutality against the lead, the female lead in the beginning. I thought it was unrealistic. Even if you go for small town sheriffs, it seemed like the violence against the female character was excessive in order to establish the actions that would occur by that lead later in the movie. So I found some of that a little difficult to watch because I thought it was pretty bad in the beginning.
So Senthil, that was one of the things I saw too. And though I was not, and I'll say I was not a big fan of I Am Lisa, but I also am not a big fan of movies where you have to create a situation in order to get to revenge, right? It's and over. So in other words, it was an over exaggeration. Even the most corrupt sheriff, if you come in and I want to, hey, even if it's your daughter and you say, hey, she stole something and returned it, you're not going to get the shit beat out of you by the local sheriff. It's just so, I mean, it was this unrealistic. There was no buildup to it, right? We know that there were issues in the past with the two female characters that are kind of like the yin and yang, the good and the bad here. It's obvious that there was tension between them, but the fact is the main character leaves the town for a period of time. Her mother passes away. She comes back, and now this old feud is back, but it's not excessive enough to get to the point of the beating that she takes in order to take us to that next level.
Exactly. And the other elements that didn't work for me in this film, where in broad daylight they're burning down the bookstore.
Yes, with cars going behind them.
Yeah, it's not a small town that I'm familiar with.
Yeah,
but even in these kind of small town sheriff kind of movies that we've seen, that I thought that was a bit unrealistic in order to drive the plot. So that element didn't work for me. The other aspects of it were because I didn't, I found the revenge motivation to be a bit unusual, and I felt that the killing and the deaths that took place also didn't. We've talked about this before. Didn't take advantage of the fact that there's a monster involved, and how would a monster with superpowers really handle the situation?
Yeah, so one of the things I actually liked in this film, I Am Lisa, is that it's a different take on a werewolf film. And what I appreciated was that her transformation wasn't into this total werewolf, right? Where you go like American Werewolf in London or Silver Bullet or any of those werewolf films where their transformation becomes this hairy walking werewolf. I actually appreciated that it was kind of this metamorphosis of human wolf attributes, some longer claws, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. The fingernails didn't work, the eyes didn't work, but I knew what they were trying to do with it, and I appreciated where they were going with that. Where I was disappointed with that is, like you said, Senthil, if I'm a hybrid wolf human, I am going to be able to run fast. I'm going to have pretty good strength, and I'm going to know how to hunt my prey. And this was just, walking into a, garage, walking into a bar, walking into a sheriff's office, and here's a guy. Why at the end does she walk into the sheriff's office knowing that they're going to kill her, and it comes out to be, and I'm not going to spoil this for anybody, but there's somebody who comes in and basically saves her. I mean, that didn't make any damn sense either. I mean, I couldn't understand why that.
I agree. The ending didn't quite fit together for me. As you mentioned, I do appreciate the fact that they came up with a story-driven reason why the effects weren't traditional werewolf effects. There's even a scene where they talk about the fact that the sheriff knows about the existence of these human werewolf hybrids, and the fact that not all of them turn full into
Right.
during the full moon. So that was clever, and that justified why they didn't have full werewolf effects. But yeah, the approach that the character took and how the killing took place just didn't fit in.
And the other thing is, at the beginning of the movie, before they start introducing, the screen roll, there's actually a scene, right? And she says, "Oh, it's time to go get another one," right? And
Yeah.
it's like a cult, but it never turns into a cult. I mean, there's nothing that scene at the beginning adds nothing to the rest of the movie. And the character with the scars across his face adds zero to it too. I mean, I couldn't understand. I mean, I that's what frustrates me about movies like this, right? I think that they were coming up with the whole, hey, the pentagram and all of this stuff, and that it was a cult, and that they created new werewolves on a yearly basis or whatever. But it turns out, no, they don't, or they did, but they don't. I mean, so they never go anywhere with it.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. The character with the scars on the face, I really thought they would develop that a little bit further.
Yes.
And the kidnapped victim that he had for apparently a long time, that didn't flesh out very
No.
much either. There's no reason, rhyme, justification. And if they had taken the cult angle, which should have been a little bit different than a traditional werewolf movie, I think that could have made this unique and interesting. And you didn't even necessarily need the full werewolf effects. I would have been okay with that. But
Yeah.
it was I felt either an unfulfilled story, or maybe the scenes got on the cutting room floor. I don't know.
Well, I think they were pushing a little bit too. I mean, look, the daughter was running a brothel, I guess, with underage girls and drugs and crap like that. And frankly, Synthel, I mean, maybe it was to try to turn you against the character, that this is a really bad person. It didn't work. I mean, frankly, I didn't feel anything for any of the characters. I mean, there was no build up. There was nothing that gave me a reason to care whether somebody lived or died. And the way that she took these people out, it was like, yeah, okay, great. You snap somebody's neck. Woo, this is, so it lost me. I mean, again, I like the concept of hybridization, right? You don't become this full-on werewolf. I even love some of the descriptions. Hey, some people go completely mad and they lose themselves. Some people become this hybrid. Some people go full wolf and never return. So, but what? Why? Take me on that journey.
That's where I think the payoff could have been for this.
Yes.
I'm reminded of we've reviewed 2 or 3 micro budget werewolf-oriented movies.
Yes.
That had very little effects involved and had unique storylines that drove it, such as Wolf of Snow Hollow. I just didn't get that. I think they had a valiant attempt, but there were too many competing motivating factors that were there, I thought, just to justify the revenge that the primary character was involved in.
I mean, so simple to me, great. I mean, if you're looking for revenge film, small town, you can't get better than Rambo, the first Rambo, right? And
Right.
That sheriff was downright evil, right? And it was all about, he didn't want scruffy people in his town and all of that stuff. So it kind of set the line, right? And so it became the battle of the vet and this sheriff who thinks he's a badass. I look at things like that and go, okay, we're having this disagreement is taking place. This never built any of that. I never felt this tension between Lisa and the sheriff. And for what reason? Because her daughter and her didn't. I mean, again, I know we're going over old stuff again. For me, so in the long run, Cynthia, what I would say is this is one of those werewolf movies that I probably would not suggest anybody, if you're looking for a werewolf film, this isn't it. That being said, there was some unique concepts that if you've got 90 minutes to spare, take a watch. It could have been so much better.
I think that's the issue for me as well. I can see the potential and the ideas that were solid, and they weren't fully realized. So that's the reason I probably wouldn't recommend it either, simply because it had unrealized potential that was clearly there, and for various reasons didn't really come through. So for that reason, I'm impressed once again with what these directors, as we've said in every episode, what they can do with micro budgets, but too many elements of this just didn't work for me. So I wouldn't recommend it.
I would agree. Well, Cecil, hey, it was a lot of fun, and I'm going to see you again next week.
Absolutely. See you all later.